You know, we've lost common sense in this country. I would call it the death of common sense. The same people who are telling us there is man-made global warming, despite the coldest summer on record, the increase in pack ice in the Arctic, are now telling us to believe the government when they say Ebola poses no threat. And we should, just move on, just go about your business. I call them Ebola deniers. Because the Ebola outbreak should have been confined to the hot zone in Africa. It was total insanity to bring it to America. Of course, it's debatable because many of you are under the mistaken notion that compassion should supersede survival. The big debate is about whether Ebola should have been allowed to be brought into the continent, even in a controlled and quarantine state. But the fact of the matter is, it was insane to do so. Voluntarily bringing the Ebola virus to North America is the most critically insane thing Obama has done to date. He is risking the lives of all of us to save these few people. And I'm not saying write these people off. I never said that. These are missionaries, by the way. These are missionaries who went to Africa knowing the risk. I didn't say, therefore, let them die. I said, therefore, treat them in Africa. Bring them the doctors and bring them the equipment that is necessary. Bring them to Africa. Now, you may say that this is spreading inaccurate information. It starts public panics. And you say that Ebola is totally controllable. That's BS. That is total nonsense. They were brought here for a number of reasons, and none of them are compassionate. They were brought here so they can be experimented upon in BS4 labs, controlled by the corrupt CDC. They were brought here so they can be used as guinea pigs, so they can teach the scientists, the Dr. Sylvanas, how to learn a lot about how to treat and control hemorrhagic fevers in the future. It's a good place to do a controlled study to be published in the Annals of Virology. So they're not bringing these patients home just because it was the right thing to do. No, my friends. Was it too much to ask to treat these patients in labs that are controlled in Africa? See, the only BS4 labs in Africa are in South Africa and Gabon, and they're not controlled by the CDC. They're not controlled by the CDC. Did you hear what I just said? The CDC wants to control the labs. We also know that direct contact of fluids is allegedly the only route of transmission, and I said allegedly. But let me give you some other facts that you probably haven't gotten from the New York Post or the New York Times, the journal of record of foolishness. Let me ask you something, Mr. Sulzberger of the New York Times. If you were walking on, 7th Avenue in Manhattan, where somebody just sneezed in the last 3 to 5 minutes, and he happened to be infected with Ebola, then you would be in direct contact of such fluids. You understand that? And so you have to understand, my friends, that Ebola has been shown to defeat the air barrier in animal experiments. Did you know that? Ebola has been able to defeat the air barrier in animal experiments. They should have been treated in the hot zone. By removing them from Africa, the government has increased the chance of the disease spreading to an area which would have otherwise remained unaffected by the disease, meaning the United States of America. That is why the same lying clowns at the CDC, who are sitting there with their nice ties and shirts assuring us in mellifluous tones that we're all safe, don't worry, go about your business, these are the same criminals, and I use a harsh word because they're committing a criminal act by letting TB, scabies, and cholera come across the border without having said a word about it. How come the very same nice doctor who is such an expert on the safety of Ebola has nothing to say about the diseases pouring over the border from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Point South? How come the very same doctor has said nothing about that? Because he's nothing but a spokesmouth for the Obama administration. If you look at the news stories that have come out, there were 6 more people tested for Ebola in New York City, not 1 more. And it's been alleged that the health authorities are hiding the number from the public. In fact, in Africa, they say the outbreak is much worse than thought. They say it's spinning out of control in Africa. British Airways has suspended flights to these areas of Africa. But you shouldn't worry. Don't you worry, because the very same people who assure you that the world is coming to an end because of global warming induced by man tell you you have nothing to worry about there bringing Ebola into the United States of America.